Welcome to Media and Monuments, presented by Women in Film and Video in Washington, D.C. Media and Monuments is conversations featuring industry pros speaking on a wide range of topics of interest to media makers.
Welcome and thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Candice Bloch, and today I have the honor and joy of sitting down with two guests as we discuss the fantastic media that comes out of NASA. Joining me is Wade Sisler, the executive producer at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. Wade supports a team of animators, data visualizers, video producers, web editors, science writers, and social media mavens as they share NASA's most exciting science stories with a wide and diverse audience. I'm also joined by Lori Perkins, who is a computer engineer at NASA's Scientific Visualization Studio. She specializes in data visualization that uses complex 2D graphics, 3D animation, data processing, data registration, editing, and image analysis tools to better understand, illustrate, and explain technical ideas, concepts, and scientific results. Welcome to the show, Wade and Lori.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So NASA provides way more media to the world than most people would probably realize. Not only do you have media studios and produce a lot of great scientific visualizations and science education, but you have tours, film and video jobs, and even a robust social media presence where you create and distribute content about our own planet and solar system and beyond, discoveries and observations. So first and foremost, how did you each get into this super cool line of work? Did you come at it from like the science side or the media side? We could start with Wade.
And I've never really disclosed this publicly before, so this is the first. But I was a failed pre-med. I was on a science trajectory in medicine, but I heard my calling as a photographer and a video producer. And I started as an intern way back at the Ames Research Center out in California, and spent a number of years there as a photographer and worked on things like early telepresence and VR concepts with NASA, and even fun projects like the frog embryology project with astronaut Mae Jemison before coming to NASA headquarters, working on a couple IMAX deals and early NASA TV. But where I really found my heart was coming to NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, where the theme was science, and having a chance to work with science storytellers of all kinds. Really bringing visuals to science in ways that hadn't been done before through animation, data visualization, and video producers. So that's how I got my start.
Awesome. So yeah, you're a natural storyteller. What about you, Lori?
So I got my engineering degree, but I was a broke college student. And so I needed to find some kind of way to finish my engineering degree because I ran out of money. And I applied to every single NASA field center. At the time, you had to apply to every one of them individually, put a stamp on it and send it in, did all of that. And somehow they called me back. And I didn't care what I was going to do for NASA. I wanted to do anything that they would allow me to do. I started with engineering and I wrote a whole bunch of code on different projects. But what I really love about working for NASA is you'll be in a hallway and you'll just ask somebody what they're doing and they tell you the most amazing things. And then I'm like, oh, I want to do that. So that's how I got into the science section of it. I just wanted to learn more.
That's so cool. You guys are surrounded by such amazing things all of the time. It's NASA. The whole world knows about NASA. So it's very exciting that you get to be a part of it every day and help bring that to all of us. So I know I appreciate that you guys do all of this. So there are 25 science video producers at NASA Goddard, which is actually located nearby in Maryland. I'm based in DC, and I've actually had the pleasure of visiting Goddard before. But what is like a day or a week like for those producers? If you have a day in the life as a media producer at Goddard, what might that be like? And does it change if there's an exciting new discovery or something going on that was unexpected?
I'd say that the currency of the day in the life of a video producer is really to tell those stories. And so a producer might walk in with a big, long plan, and there's a new discovery that day. Someone says, Eureka, I discovered blank. The producer will sit down with folks like Lori and science writers, and the scientist may come in and say, I've never seen this before. And she'll be describing exactly what it is. And we will try to figure out, and the producer and the visualizer and the science writer and our social media folks will try to figure out how we're going to share that story with the public. What are the core visuals that we're going to develop? What will the final video products be like? When will we put things out? Is it linked to a science paper? First, there's a lot of strategy involved. And I would say that the primary thing that we do is help develop the core content that would be used not only for our own storytelling directly to be able to share the stories through our social media channels, but also with our affiliate content producers, the media and educational content producers, rendering content so that they can tell the stories themselves.
So it sounds like you have almost endless amount of content that you could be putting out. How do you decide which stories get brought to the different avenues in which you release them?
I like to say every time we open or turn over a rock, there are 20 science stories calling out to be told. And I think that the scientists guide us. We try to figure out which ones haven't been told before. We'll ask for guidance, which are the most important stories, and which, of course, for us, which are the most visually compelling. Lori, how do you guys pick?
The science community is required to publish their scientific papers. And so, what we do in the visualization studio is we look at papers and see which ones we can represent visually, which ones are exciting. They're all exciting, but which ones have the data that we can really make a difference. We want to make something that's impactful that people will remember. But the scientists, they are working and working and producing stuff over and over again. The breadth of information, just this week alone, I saw some about pulsars, that these kind of extreme physics entities that are in outer space and people are using to do navigation like in Star Trek. And then we had some soil moisture on the earth science side. Um, there's just so many different types of data, and different science efforts. The research is amazing.
It sounds like with all of the scientists and all the stuff that's constantly ongoing, is there even a way to put a number or to quantify how much new media produced in a given time, like in a week even?
If you look at our streams, you'll see dozens of different products ranging from simple images that might come directly down from space that we might put out through something like Hubble or our Solar Dynamics Observatory. But we could also have very in-depth products that might be in development for weeks or months. Let's say that a scientist has been working on a publication that's going to be published in a leading scientific journal. We may be working on that for quite some time to define exactly what is in there. So any week, there's probably a dozen different stories that are going out. We try to use a little bit of strategy so that we don't have everything going out the same day, or that we put a little bit more emphasis in certain areas. But it's a bountiful amount of content.
And you have a lot of different ways that this stuff can get consumed. I know there's different websites and you've got a YouTube channel, and I understand there might even be an app coming up. Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
There's a new NASA app. It's actually a version of an app that you can download right now that's been managed by the Ames Research Center, just the NASA app. But we are going to be upgrading that for NASA Plus. It will be our version of what you might see on Apple TV or Roku or Hulu or something, where you'll be able to see and download and access NASA TV without a satellite. So that's going to be very exciting. We're going to be moving away from the satellite-driven environment to this nonlinear, just on-demand content. But it will be an opportunity to be able to sit back in your living room and see NASA's content in its glory, in its full resolution, and there's going to be no cost to it. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
That's amazing how much you put out there and how accessible it is to everyone. So what's probably the main way that you think people consume the visual content that you all create? Is it through websites? Because I know you might have some that are only available some ways and not others, or how do you decide where it goes and where are most people consuming this content?
I think most people probably consume it directly from NASA through our social media streams, our YouTube channel, but an equal number may see our content produced by our partners. And I know you have a lot of media producers who tune into this podcast, and I want to maybe offer Lori a chance to talk about the Scientific Visualization Studio's website, which is a unique place for producers who are interested in science-driven content in high and native resolutions.
At the Scientific Visualization Studio, the website is svs.gsfc.nasa.gov. We produce and release all of the visuals that you might need to edit your own piece. And we know we are not the only talented producers out there, and we want to share that with the world. So if you are working on a project about climate change, we have so much material. We want you to use that material. We provide a number of things and we encourage others to take what we've used, put that into your own TikToks, release your own things to your own audiences. We love it when we see our work in museums or on music videos or however that story is told, because we know that your audiences are sometimes different than our audiences. And the point is not for us to show that we're so great. The point is for the information to be released, like in particular for climate change, right? Climate change isn't going to be solved by one person doing something huge, right? It's going to be solved by the world understanding that this is a problem and each of us doing our part. That's our part to the puzzle is we make all of the pieces available. So for example, for the upcoming eclipse in October of this year and the upcoming eclipse, the total solar eclipse next year, we've not only made our visuals available and the pieces for how we composited all of our visuals, but we've made the shape files and all of the things, the CGI stuff that any visualizer or any editor might want to use in their piece also available on our websites. And we do that with all of the lunar things as well. We make topography and textures and files and outlines, all that kind of stuff available.
I know I didn't know that all of this stuff was available. And is it available like for free for anybody to use?
NASA is funded by the federal government, and so everything that we produce is freely available, freely downloadable.
Wow, that's an amazing resource. Creators of all type take note. So yeah, there's all of that stuff which people can use for other things. But do you also work for if there's exciting live time things like live streams of launches or special like celestial events or things like that? So I know a lot of it is content that is created almost like passively, but do you do live event type things too with maybe a studio situation?
There's a whole range of live events that might take place on NASA TV. Back when we had the South by Southwest, we partnered with them and streamed some of the plenary sessions there. We might have press conferences, pre-launch briefings, of course, the launches themselves. There's a whole team of folks that work primarily out of the Kennedy Space Center who specialize in live activities. So like the Artemis launch that happened a few months ago, they really put a lot of effort into letting everyone come along for the ride. That really speaks to the roots of the space program, even back in our charter back in the late 50s, when Congress asked us to share the results of the space program with the widest possible audience. We really take that to heart in terms of leaning into sharing in every which way we can. One point that Lori made that I really wanted to emphasize for the folks listening that might be producers themselves, Lori's colleagues have arranged the content on the scientific visualization website in gallery format so that if you don't really know where you're starting, I don't care if you're a student or if you're an advanced producer working in climate change, heliophysics, the study of the sun, planetary science, or astrophysics, and some of the latest images from James Webb, you can go to the Scientific Visualization Studio and download those, sometimes in their original 4K content or even uncompressed original animation format. But they're in gallery, so you can browse among the thousands and thousands of visuals and say, what are the essentials that you need to tell a story on, say, the ozone hole or fires burning? And our producers may gather those. What do you need to tell that and be able to browse the essential visuals and pull down just what you need?
Yeah, it sounds like an amazing resource that not only you can go there with kind of an idea in mind, but if you're looking around, you might get ideas of things that you want to explore more or find something that inspires you to dig a little deeper and maybe tell a story about that. So that's really cool. There's visual elements, obviously, and we talk and focus primarily on screen-based and visual media over here, but there's also some non-visual things that can even enhance visuals, like audio stuff, for example. And I know there's like a podcast that you all have. There's a NASA Curious Universe audio storytelling program. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
There is. And part of the producer environment that we talked about is that there are creatives. We almost call ourselves the NASA creatives because they are working. There's a lot of cross team support. But one of the teams at a Goddard supports the entire agency in the podcast, The Curious Universe, one of the flagship podcasts for NASA. And they will tackle subject matter across the agency with a lot of fidelity into the sound. Season 5 just concluded this week. So you can just go check out the series. But they also have sparklers and some of the assets that were used for the shows and a lot of collateral material and links back to our visual material if it's relevant. So I definitely encourage folks to do that. One of the things I'm real excited about is that the Curious Universe team is partnering with our Spanish language team. And they're now working on one of the first science podcasts in Spanish. So we are constantly working towards that goal of sharing our results as far and wide as possible through new and exciting means. So that's just one of the examples.
That's amazing. Yeah, I know there's definitely people listening that are in awe of how much of a fantastic resource you all are. I know people might be listening just to hear a little about the process, but not realizing, oh my gosh, this is all available. So I hope people are going right now and clicking on the websites and looking up all your things and following your accounts and everything. But also just to dig a little deeper into getting back to some of those animations and visualizations, which is crucial for what you do. Wade, before this interview, you had even described that's sort of the Pixar of NASA, the scientific visualization studio, and how you all create all these amazing things with this great technology and bringing to life all this data. Lori, maybe this is a great time to dig a little deeper into some of that and talk about the process of turning some of this data into understandable pieces of art.
So in the visualization studio, what we do is we start with science data. So everything is real, right? Everything that we do is an observation or some form of real science that a researcher uses. And we use all of the standard tools that a scientist or an engineer would use to understand that data. And then we use the same tools that Hollywood uses. We do use Pixar. Pixar produces a wonderful software called RenderMan, and we use their software. We also use Side Effects' Houdini software. We use Autodesk's Maya software. We also use some free software like Blender to produce some of our visualizations. And so we pull it all together and then we release that just to see if we can make something that is as impactful as we possibly can.
It's absolutely amazing the technology that exists. Like every day that improves. Do you sometimes utilize like AI to help with interpreting some of the data that comes in?
There's no doubt about they're using artificial intelligence in all kinds of interesting ways, maybe to help detect objects that we wouldn't normally be able to just see with our own human senses. Even our animators are beginning to play with that in some of our image generation, some of the early ideas, things that we might not be able to visualize through traditional means. So yes, the scientists are using it and our team's starting to explore AI as well.
That's cool. Yeah, because I know there's a lot of stuff that especially is interpreting data and you're not actually necessarily filming it or capturing it, but you're turning something that you didn't put a camera on into something that we can still see with the work of Lori and her team and all of that.
We actually just worked with a fabulous group of scientists where we knew we had a lot of carbon in our atmosphere, which is heating up our planet. We knew that we had put so much carbon in the atmosphere, but we didn't know where that carbon goes. Like it was being drawn down. We didn't know if it was in the ocean or if it was in trees. And we had one scientist who thought, hey, you know what? There's a whole bunch of trees in Africa, real close to the Sahara, on the small line of across the Africa where they get very little rainfall. It's not the Sahara and it's not the sort of rainier section. It's right in the middle in a hyper arid area where they don't really get very much rainfall at all. And he used artificial intelligence and he used it just a whole ton of commercially available satellite data to look and to count the number of trees that are in this region where you typically don't think if you don't get much rain, you don't think of that you're going to have trees. But and the world really wouldn't have told you ahead of time. The science community wouldn't have told you that there were this number of trees until our scientists we trained our values on 90,000 actual images, and then we took our supercomputers and ran it through the whole array of data that we had available. And they counted something like 9 billion trees that really they didn't know existed. And those trees are pulling carbon out of the atmosphere. So it actually helps us improve our weather and our climate forecasts because now we understand that we can understand now how much carbon those trees are pulling out of the atmosphere. So this is kind of a cool project.
So, if anyone is listening to this and getting excited about all of these things, I think it's important to point out that there's film and video jobs at NASA and different internships and things like that. Could you give us some more information about the opportunities if people are wanting to help you all out with the amazing things that you do or maybe join the team?
Both of us might have an answer there. I will say we really take our student programs very seriously at NASA across the board, but within the Office of Communications, we run internships in science writing, science production, social media, and also animation. And I believe Lori's team will also occasionally take interns and fellows in the scientific visualization studio. What we really try to do is to be able to teach a little bit about what goes into the modern science communication campaign. We've described a lot of different roles and responsibilities today. And what we really try to do is talk about how all those team members work together to produce content that everyone can use and that we can help us share the results of our science stories. So we do encourage students to apply. And also, there's a number of producing jobs every year. We're not a big, huge top-down organization. We do have a lot of folks, I would say, in the Confederation, in orbit around the storytelling team at Goddard, but they're not, some of them belong to universities, some other organizations, even other partners like NOAA. But we do encourage people to just do your searches, and every year there are a few jobs that open up in production. It's not a bad way to start as an intern, though. We really do work hard on our pipelines.
Yeah. And a lot of us, like me, started as interns. We also work with the wider community too. We work with the larger science community. Two of my interns this past year, I encouraged them to take the work that they did when they under the internship, and I encouraged them to submit their work to the AGU Visualization Challenge, which the due date for that is July 11th of this year. And then if you win that, what you get is an opportunity to present your work publicly at the AGU conference in San Francisco. So you get your travel paid for, you get your hotel paid for, and then you get mentorship with people like me that do visualization on a regular basis. And it's a great opportunity for us as people that do visualization to see really talented young people and some of the creative ways that they can pull different data together.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff that you all do and a lot of opportunities. And getting back to those resources that you already have, if someone is a filmmaker is working on a project and they maybe don't know where to begin, or they start looking around, but they're feeling a little lost, how might someone who has a project in mind that wants to use some of your content, how might they maybe collaborate a little bit? Do you ever work with anybody to help make sure the project they're doing or the film they're creating is heading in the right direction? From big to small, even things like, do you work closely with people making things like Interstellar or The Martian to make sure things are accurate, but down to even someone making like a little short about soil or something?
Yeah, as you insinuate, there's a whole level of programs. There's a group at NASA headquarters who work on those interstellar-like collaborations where both parties might be using logos and where the agency's all in. And then it goes all the way down to anyone, literally anyone can grab our images, our data, and use them really without checking with us. Just you go out and integrate them in. If you're in there somewhere in between, what I think people are maybe surprised at just how open our scientists, our communicators are about reaching out to them and saying, hey, I have this idea. What do you think? Everyone's extremely busy. Sometimes you have to be a little bit persistent, but most folks try to be helpful and will give you a little bit of feedback and will try to direct you to that next step. Oh, I'm interested in talking to somebody on Mars. I'm interested in finding out more about Earth or planetary science or solar storms. What I would say is the more information that you can provide, the more fidelity in your script and treatment that you can provide, the better and easier it is for us to help you. We don't crank out custom visuals for everyone who comes in and asks, but we will try to direct you to the galleries that I mentioned or to resources around the agency.
And honestly, I love some of the emails that we get. I got two emails today. One was asking for high resolution versions of Mars because somebody was going to make a puzzle of like a jigsaw puzzle. And then there was a textile company that wanted to use some of the sort of beautiful, like Landsat type imagery of the Earth, and they wanted to see what some of my favorite images were, and think about it like something like something that you would want to wear or clothing that was in. And there's a product called, it's part of the Climate Know Your Stripes thing, where different people are trying to increase awareness of certain issues by including textiles into that. So we answered all of them. I mean, that's kind of interesting for us.
It sounds like you have a very interesting, ever-changing, and exciting job. And it sounds like for everyone, I'm not even going to say sky's the limit. It's like the universe is not even the limit. There is no limit. The limit does not exist. We are running a little long on time because I know I could keep asking questions and talking about this. It's so fascinating. Before we get into letting people know what they should follow and where they can see all of this great stuff, was there anything that any of you wanted to add that we didn't cover?
I would love to encourage your listeners to be partners with NASA. Some of the most innovative ideas that we have are with our content collaborators, engaging audiences in new and innovative ways through the arts, through science centers. I think we need your help. We have regular fans out there, but I think what's really exciting is when we bring people in and new types of creators who will reach completely new audiences. That's what we're excited about doing. So yeah, please, we need your help.
Yeah, I totally agree. Sometimes the best ideas come from places you don't necessarily expect. So we try to listen to those things, and we try and make sure that everybody feels like they can have a voice, because you never know where that best idea is going to come from next.
Yeah. This has been amazing. And for our listeners, don't forget that not only is there all of the beautiful and amazing space and galaxy and stuff from the stars that you can get from NASA, there's also a lot of great content about our planet. Where should people follow? What website specifically would maybe be a great starting point, or some places that you'd recommend people follow?
I think following NASA's primary social media streams is the way to start for most people. You're going to see amazing pictures almost every single day of something you've never seen before. And then the other one for the content producers is the one that Lori mentioned. And you only really have to remember 3 letters, if I can pronounce them here so you can understand them. S as in scientific, V as in visualization, and S as in studio, svs.nasa.gov. That's the website where this gallery is, where all of our content from the producers, the animators, and most importantly, the scientific visualizers resides. So those would be the 2 places I would say.
Excellent. Thank you so much, both of you, for sitting down and chatting with me today. I wish I could keep asking questions and go on, but definitely check it all out. We'll put all this information in the show notes. And thank you so much for not only what you do every day, but for talking with me about it today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Media and Monuments, a service of Women in Film and Video in Washington, D.C. Please remember to review, rate, and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. For more information about WIF, please visit our website at WIF as in Frank, V as in Victor.org.